Here at MacGyver's Workshop, we build, fix, or re-engineer just about anything. You never know what we'll be working on next. And if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Hi there. Welcome to another episode of MacGyver's Workshop. Today, we're going to build a small light fixture. It's kind of a prototype utilizing LED lights. Now, the company I work for just tried out a bunch of high bay LED lights. They looked really cool, and I have a rather poor quality picture from my phone, and I'll segue to that here in just a second. But those things are like $750, and I mean, I don't know. And we've had them in there for a couple of months and had a lot of problems with them. You know, some of them have been good, and some of them, you know, segments go out in them and all that. But what I found is this. What we have here is a Par 38 floodlight. Walmart just came out with these in their Great Value brand, and they're the equivalent of a 90-watt bulb. They draw 17 watts total, and they are of the daylight color intensity, which means they're a very bright white light. They don't have that soft yellowy, shadowy light to it. Never been a, you know, generic, you know, I was thinking to myself, well, okay, but I tried a couple of these on my outdoor floodlights on the front of the workshop, and the halogens kept burning out. Like anytime it would rain, they would burn out. And you know, those things are like 20 feet up in the air, so they're not exactly easy to change. So last year, I put a pair of these up there, and they have been working flawlessly ever since. I mean, we had an ice storm and they were covered with ice, and they continued to work. I've just been really, really impressed with them. And I got to thinking, you know, for $750, I can afford to do a little bit of experimenting to see if, say, 4 of these in a housing roughly would be the equivalent of one of these 400-watt metal halides like I have in the shop here. And you'll notice from all my videos in these workshops, in this workshop, you know, you'll hear that buzz going on, and that's these 9 400-watt metal halide lights. And you know, figure 4 of those, that's 3,600 watts of power I'm pulling, you know, for whatever time I'm in this shop. So you know, that can put a hurting on the light bill. So I'm just going to try these. So I bought 4 of these, and I'm going to build me a little fixture to see how bright they are. They're incredibly bright outside at night. I want to see how well they'll do in lieu of one of my 400-watt metal halides here. So stay tuned. Okay, so here's what we've got. Now, just for the sake of experimenting here, I'm going to use these little lamp holders. They're cheap, they're plastic. You get them at your big box home supply store. These were $1.39 each. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take and saw up some 1x and make ourselves just a little temporary fixture, and see how it put 4 of those fixtures or those bulbs in there and see how it works. So what we've done here is we've basically made us a little box out of some 1x, and this is basically the equivalent of 1x6. It's 5.5 inches. I ripped it out of a 1x12, but that's okay. And then every 6 inches I back cut this with a table saw, as you saw me doing previously, but didn't cut quite all the way through, so it allowed me to make these little bends. And what that does is that allows the bulbs to sit at a slight angle, whereas this one's at a pretty aggressive angle going that way, and this one's a slightly less angle. This angle here, slightly less angle, perfectly vertical, slight angle, slightly more angled. So that allows the lights to disperse the light in a wider pattern. So we'll see that later on here as we get further. But anyhow, that's where I'm at the moment. Now I'm fixing to drill me some holes here, some big holes with my hole saw here. Make me some holes here where when these are mounted, I'll have a nice big hole to get through to run my wires in. So anyway, okay. Now, since we're just throwing together a prototype here for testing, you know, this may or may not end up being permanent, but when you're dealing with plastic fixtures, or double insulated as they call it, okay, always make sure that the black wire goes to the brass colored screw, or in other words, the center terminal there. That's the hot wire on 110 volt AC, and then the white is always the neutral or the return. So back in your breaker box, you'll find that all your whites should be also tied to ground, which is the green. So when you're dealing with something like this, you always want to put the black wire to the brass screw or the center conductor of the light bulb. And you'll notice that the other screw is white or silver, and that one's brass. So black always goes to the brass. So anyway, off we go. Alright, so what I discovered is basically the ideal scenario for this fixture will have 5 bulbs in it. Of course, I only bought 4 bases, so right now we'll just experiment with the 4 and see how this does. So we've got all our metal halides on in here. I remember there's 9 of them, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And those are each 400 watt metal halides. So I'm going to turn those out, and we'll close the doors up here, cut off all the daylight, and it will be dark in here. All right. Oh, that's pretty darn bright. Let's point it towards the front of the shop and see what we get. I don't know that that's going to be as bright as a metal halide, but at 17 watts a piece versus, 5 times 17, that's 50, whatever that is. Maybe close to 100 watts, 80, 100 watts per fixture of 4 or 5 bulbs. That throws a good bit of light. So I'm thinking this is going to be a very viable option here, because Each of these bulbs run about $24 each, and they're already a flood, so they've already got the reflector built into them. And by angling, you know, this one's dead vertical, these two are at a slight angle this way, and then these two, of course that one's not there yet, are at a further angle to disperse the light. And I'll back up a little bit to the back of the shop here. You see the dispersal pattern from that one fixture on the ceiling, and that's pretty darn good. Now later on, at some point, when I can, I'll mount it up to the ceiling and see how it throws light down on the floor. But now, since I shut my halides off, I have to wait 15 minutes before I can fire them up again. So anyway, we'll see more of this in part 2. How about that? So thanks for watching.